This is Between Hooksets. I'm Jason Walter from In Through the Outdoors with my partner in slime, Kurt Underhill from the fishing crew.
What is going on, buddy?
Hello, much more subtle of a hook set tonight.
Yeah.
I decided I've been a little too aggressive. We fished last night and lost. We got bit off 6 or 7 times. We lost big fish. It was disappointing, but we were out fishing anyway, nonetheless. So it was a good time. You know, we had a good time this weekend. The 50th Gov Cup was a good one. It is in the books, but I'm going to flash this quick. And Hoyer's the one that taught me the flash thing, I believe. He's actually he's pretty good at that, making a real thing. So let's bring in our guests. Let's get this thing going because they've got places to go and more podcasts to be on. And Tyson Keller Duane Hjelm, how you guys doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Wonderful.
Doing all right.
Thank you very much for accepting this invitation on top of the 52 others I'm sure that you got. So appreciate it.
So, Dewey's in the boat ready to roll for North Dakota. So he held back one extra night, not just for us, but yeah, I'm going to say for us. He held back just so he could leave in the morning, just so he could be on this show. But so has it sunk in yet, boys? You are 4-time Governor's Cup champions. You've joined an elite pack. Dave Spade's got 4, McCumsey's got 5, and you guys have 4. That is it.
Go ahead, Dewey.
Oh, yeah. It was pretty unbelievable. I haven't really had much time to even think about it just with some of the stuff going on at home, but I can tell you one thing. It definitely it feels just as good as the first one, so it's pretty special just to, me and Tyson have so much history and built a crazy friendship out of honestly just fishing the Gov Cup alone, if all things else aside. So it's just a really fun, special tournament. I know that's near and dear to Tyson and myself both.
Yeah, I don't even know how else to say it, Dewey, but, we both know our feeling is mutual, but, since I've been a young boy, tournament fishing has just been a huge part of my thought process, my desire in my life, and the Governor's Cup has definitely fueled that. It's my beginning. It's what we think about all the time, and it's been so rewarding. And the amount of effort, that we've put in over the years to achieve what we've had achieved, it's taken a lot of time, but we've learned so much, Kurt and Jason. I mean, it's just there's no other time that you can learn so much as you can the week before the Gov Cup, because you have to get out there and figure new things out. You have to perform, and you have to be able to compete against people that can beat you. And the only way to get better is to put yourself in that situation. And, what a blessing to be able to do it. It's just feelings.
So we always talk about it. And I want to hear from you. Is it true? Like the Gov Cup flip, like you can be on something for weeks, and the Gov Cup, like it seems like sometimes it's Wednesdays, sometimes it's Friday of the Gov Cup, but there's something these fish do that it's like they know it's the Gov Cup week and they completely change what's going on.
Yeah.
Is that a true factor
happens.
out there?
Yeah, 100%. Every single year that happens.
Now, I'm guessing that after having talked backstage Friday night during the rules meeting, we talked about weights, talked about what you got to do to get it done. When you were out on the water day 1, and especially day 2, did it just feel like everything was going right? Like we always hear, it just, you had a good feeling. Yeah, you don't know what other people are doing, but did you have a good feeling about you guys?
Go ahead, Tyson.
So we know the first, I don't know if anybody else that's listening tonight had ever heard the story about my dream on the first one that we had won. It's pretty funny, actually. So in 2014, I had this dream, I just consumed by the preparation process and the desire to do well. I mean, it's not necessarily trying to beat other anglers. It's trying to beat the fish at their own game. And if you do that, you're going to do just fine. But I remember 2 to 3 days before 2014 Gov Cup, I had a dream that Garrick McCumsey pulled into Spring Creek Marina on his pontoon with 2 bottles of champagne and is spraying them in the air. I mean, this dream is as vivid as can be today. And Dewey and I go into the rules meeting on Friday night. Kurt had never done bottles of champagne before, and here's 2 bottles of champagne sitting up next to the cups. And I'm like, oh my God, the hair stood up on my neck, and that one came through. But this one here is, I know Dewey and I shared some sentiments on this year. We're kind of on a routine of these anniversary years. You
always like the anniversary years.
We've had some very close calls in between. Things could have went one way or another. This variables, but this one is really special to me because I just had this gut feeling if my son was involved with it, and Dewey got back from ICAST and we were able to do this, that I just felt this good mojo about it. And, I know Dewey can say this too, but when it's your time, it's your time. But we really had to work extremely hard to pull this one together this time. We had quite a few little variables in there that kind of threw us off, but you got to put your head down. You got to just pretend like you didn't even know it happened and push forward as hard as you can. And Dewey is a prime example of achieving and putting the blinders on and going full speed ahead. So
yeah, you do like them anniversary years. I only do the champagne on the anniversary years. So you guys won the 40th, you won the 45th, you messed up and won the 46th and then back at it at the 50th. So, I mean, the champagne must be the key for you guys. And there's something that the bottles of champagne sit there next to the trophies.
Never drank it before, but it's
there it is. Well, yeah, you've never cracked open a bottle yet.
I haven't. Have you?
Yeah, we broke into the one from 2014 a couple years ago over New Year's Eve.
Oh boy, how was it?
Not bad. Everybody had a little sip. We never sprayed it, but I don't know.
Well, that's kind of my hope is somebody would spray it, but you guys looked at me this year and I went, like, I don't want to spray. I don't want to get wrecked anything. And I'm like, just not towards them camera equipment. But other than that, go for it. Spray away.
Yeah, if it wouldn't make people mad, I would for sure do it. I'd spray the crowd.
Hey, we'll if we ever get another one, which I hope we do, we'll break that baby out and just let.
Maybe we'll have an extra one on hand, just so you're not, using the. Yep, exactly, the commemorative one. We'll
the reason, and that's like Adam with River Bottom Sanitation, he buys those whiskey bottles, and that's part of the reason. Like, okay, bust the champagne, let's roll it, but you got your commemorative 50th whiskey bottle.
Oh, let's show that again then.
By the way, that River Bottom, thank you so much. That is the coolest bottle I've ever. Kurt, did you develop that logo? Did Chalik did he help you do it there?
There was a combination of the girls at All Around Graphics for the shirts, and then Travis worked on it, and we kind of had 2 or 3 different people working on it. But I wanted that 50th to be prominent, in the logo, because 50 years is, to me, I can't believe we're here. We made it. With all the trials and tribulations of anything in the world, 50 years is a massive accomplishment.
Yeah, no doubt. And that logo is so cool with the capital in the background. And it's just so well done. It's awesome.
I'm going to pop it up real quick so everybody can see the 50th again. Do you mind if I pop up one of my favorite pictures? And I'm not sure, Kurt might know who took this, but I love this picture.
Yeah, I don't know who took that one.
It's fabulous. It pulls everything together so well. This might be one of my other favorites. Tyson, let's talk about Preston a little bit here before we start getting into tournaments and fishing and all that. This little man, there's no kid about him. He's still a 5-year-old, but he is quite the little man to have the guts to stand up in front of the crowd and sing the national anthem.
So, little story behind that. So, my son at the age of 4, he set his own personal goal, and we're trying to train him to be a good, the best we can growing up,
You're doing well.
Anyway, so we told him, like we said, if you have a goal and you have a passion to do something, you need to work hard and follow through. Well, anyway, last school season in pre-kindergarten, he actually asked the teacher if he could practice to the class before school is done this spring.
Really?
So anyway, he practiced for the class, and then he does it on our front porch over the 4th of July. He was doing it, but he's not shy at all to ask Kurt. And I kept telling him, I was like, don't wear Kurt out. Nobody likes a broken record. But it's cool that, a young child of that age set a goal and accomplished it. And thankfully to Kurt, the fishing crew, all your help and whatnot, you invited him in to do it. I hope everybody enjoyed it, and it wasn't, taken in any way but in an enjoyable fashion. But that little boy, he's on cloud 9 still to this day. And I know that your impression on him and allowing him to do that is going to be something that he will never forget. So I can't thank you guys enough, but he's I don't know if he's going to be more on the entertainment side or the fishing side quite yet, but we'll find out.
Wizzy, let him figure that out.
He's gunning for my job. Really, I think he's gunning for my job.
I think he's going to take Benny's job.
Yeah,
I think so. I do think so. But you know what? We're all gonna, I guess, go to that fishing spot on the lake at some point and fish and not work anymore. So somebody's got to take somebody's place, and Preston might as well take Kurt and Benny's place, because I'm still doing it when I'm 99.
You never know what the future is going to hold, but all I got to say is thanks for the opportunity for him. Everything begins with an opportunity. I know Dewey and I both can share that, but like, you got to have an opportunity and you got to capture it. And you just did that. So,
yeah, it's so neat, whether it's a takeoff or on the stage or singing, whatever it happens to be, he's a true joy, and he's a joy to talk to.
The best part about that photo you put up is he looked so calm and collected, but his knees were slapping together so hard. I actually had to step closer to him because he was standing on a cooler. I was afraid he was going to fall off it. So I stepped closer just in case, but from the waist up, he was just dialed, but his knees were shaking. And I'm like, you got it, bud. Like, and then that was for the kids, the Lieutenant Governor's Cup, the kids fishing tournament. And I was kind of like, okay, we'll try it here, see how well he does. He's 5. So I'm like, Tyson had sent me videos of him practicing at home and doing very well. And I'm like, but you put him on the mic on the stage in front of people, how's he going to do? And he did great. And I'm like, if you want to come tomorrow morning, you're more than welcome to get out there and sing it on the boat. I had all lined up for a boat to come pick him up at the thing. And he stayed out there for the whole hour sending boats. And I don't think between the fire rescue boat and all the boats going out, I don't think he was in a better place. That's where he wanted to be.
Plenty of entertainment. The only thing that threw him off is when the microphone did that.
Yeah, it squealed. Yep.
Exactly. Yep.
He just started right over and went right back at it. So
yeah,
it was awesome. Of everything.
So go ahead, bro.
Go ahead, Kurt.
So you guys, you prep so much for this, and you guys, I mean, Tyson, this year you kind of spent a lot of time up north, a lot more time than you did down here. And then you turn the game on like, a week or two before the Gov Cup down here.
The previous Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah. And you were up north pretty much focused. Dewey, you're in Green Bay, wherever, but you spent a lot of time on the water, but going into practice, what do you guys, Tyson living here your whole life, Dewey, you've been here, 15, 20 years now, pretty close. This is your home body of water. Do you fish memories or what? Without going into grave detail, like how do you start your practice?
Go ahead, Dewey.
Basically how I start my practice is just trying to get a feel for water conditions, water color, temperatures, all that kind of stuff. So more than anything, it's just trying to find a zone where the fish are going to be. And then over the years, Tyson and I both have kind of figured out like where do the fish want to be, not so much of where they're at right now, because every single day right now they're moving. You can catch them on a point or whatever for 2 or 3 days. You show up the next day, the wind switched, it does something a little bit different, and there's not a single fish there anymore. So you just got to be super aware of the changing conditions. And I mean, yeah, I'll be honest, we definitely fish some memories. But it's a lot of just knowledge of knowing where the fish want to be. And so just starting off, we'll work our way north, all the way down south, back in the creeks, all that kind of stuff, just to try to figure out where the fish are at. And every single year is different. The bait presentations, lures, everything that we're using, almost every single year, there's something a little bit different that we're doing. Just because, especially like, let's say with the jig wraps now, that's such a popular method in a way of the fish. You got to be a little bit different.
So when you say that, I want to get your take on it too, Tyson. But, I've kind of said this, and maybe it's in my own head, maybe it's my own belief. But do you feel like, back when flicker shads came out, they were you had to have flicker shads, you had to be pulling them. And then you guys kind of pioneered the jigging wrap thing. You were doing it very early on. And now it's like they still work, but I don't feel like they work like they used to. Do you feel like these trends, or we just kind of move on and lose confidence in it? Or do you feel like the fish have seen 10,000 jigging wraps by their face, so they're like, yeah, we're not going to hit that thing? Well,
if you don't think fish become conditioned by pressure and by presentations, you're fooling yourself. I mean, their main goal is survival, as being a wild animal. But like you say, there's presentations that work and will work for a long, long time, but there's little differences that a person can do using that same bait, maybe how you present it or how you go about it, that can make a little bit of difference. But like you said, Kurt, I through time, there's no way that every walleye in Lake Oahe has seen one. I know that from what I've seen on these fish is that they become more aware of pressure. The minute you go ripping through them and yank a couple out, they scatter a lot quicker. Whereas before, you could sit and hammer away on them for a while before they really figured out what was going on. And I think that's a big part of the game right now is, I know that we see it all the time, is they're very, very sensitive. So you've got to be very, very tactful on how you approach and which fish you target, and you try to catch them before you blow them all up. That's one big thing. But then, going back, you're talking about, Dewey's talking about the pre-fishing. I just want to mention this year was so much different than years past. And it proved to be a challenge to us because we actually fish better in deeper water. But with the rising water levels this year, we had, the lake was raising, anywhere from 1 inch to 3 inches a day. And I actually talked a little bit to Dave Spade about it at the 50th party. And he said, I can't remember, seeing rising water levels and whatnot like this for, 15, 20 years or however long it had been. So that was a big change in how we went about our approach and looking for fish, because as we all know, there's still a lot of fish that are really shallow right now, which is extremely odd for mid-July. So that really played a real curveball in our plan, because, I've heard Chris say this a million times too, is you want them to be where you're confident at catching them, but you got to catch them where they want to be. And that's 100% the truth. You got to do and target what they're doing and adapt to what they're doing. And fortunately we were able to line up on that and do it. Every year is so much different. I mean, how many out of all the years we fished, Dewey, we've never fished the same part of the reservoir once for the tournament, have we?
No, it's literally somewhere different every single year. And there's usually, it's not just one presentation that gets it done either. There's usually multiple presentations, multiple locations, plan A, B, C, D, E, you name it. And fortunately this year we got lucky with the weather, but generally what happens is the day before, the day of, whatever, we get some crazy system in, the water gets dirty. And you got to be able to adapt. That's the number one thing is just, I think the reason why we've been so fortunate and made some of the right decisions just because we got lucky and we had a lot of plans and we adapted.
I know on the 45th Dewey that we won. I know this for certain is we had an area or a zone of the lake that we had been doing very well in, consistent fish, big schools, etc. We had an extremely big blow the day before, or excuse me, on Saturday of the tournament. I remember that we were way up north on the boundary, and we had like 70-mile-an-hour winds at the mouth of the Cheyenne. You remember that, Kurt?
Oh yeah, trust me. About 10 a.m. I was I was freaking out. Yeah, trust me, I remember.
So anyway, conditions that day, we made a big run and we got our fish. The next day we went out and the water was completely blown out from that big wind. And we vacated the entire zone of the lake that we'd been 100% focusing on, trusted our electronics. We looked at the water temperature, we looked at the color, and I'll never forget that we went across the lake in a totally different zone. And Dewey said, well, I caught a couple off this area here like a week and a half ago. Let's just go look at it. And I remember we come around the corner and you could see like kind of a little bit of residual current, coming around the edge from the big wind the day before. And we pull in there and Dewey smoked a 29 and a 30 or a 28 and a 29 back to back. And, it was just absolutely crazy. But, that whole thing, I know it took me so long. I'll just mention this. It took me so long to become comfortable with being able to fly, make a decision off the cuff or off the seat of your pants. And walleye fishing is that way. A lot of times if the conditions aren't right, if they're not there, you're not going to catch them. They are always biting somewhere. And like I always say, either you run out of time or you run out of gas, one of the two.
So when you guys are in the boat and you start out, you're two seasoned veterans, you're tournament winning champions. Who decides what you're going to start with, or do you guys, is that part of your plan A? This is how we start and this is how we move through things, or do you see eye to eye all the time at the start?
100%.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like we don't even need to talk to each other. It's the crazy part about Dewey and I is like we don't really even need to even talk about much of anything. We know we're both on the same page almost 99% of the time. Wouldn't you say, Dewey?
Yep.
And I can contest to that because I think of the 46 Gov Cup when you won that one. A good friend of mine was your boat marshal, and I don't ask my boat marshals anything. Everybody's asking him, and all he would say is, all I'm going to tell you is it was like one guy in the boat. Like Tyson would flip open a bail on a rod and wouldn't even tell Dewey he was doing it, back to driving, and Dewey know exactly what rod was flipped open, shut the bail, have everything. Like he goes, it was the most incredible thing I'd ever seen. It looked like one dude in the boat. Like they didn't talk. They just knew what to do. Like,
awesome.
and I'll say this too, like I don't want to say I'm like an alpha male fisherman or something like that, but I like running the boat and I like doing that. And there's very, very few people that I feel comfortable of fishing in the back of the boat with. And I think Dewey might feel the same way, but like, I tell you what, if there's anybody that I'd fish with, or have anybody in the back or vice versa, I can't say that hardly about anybody else. And I don't know. It's a pretty cool connection and thought process and whatnot. I mean, awesome teamwork. All I've got to say, it's pretty sweet.
So in the back of the boat, who was in the back of the boat when this thing showed its you the Hoyer?
Yeah, we got to hear this story because we got a glimpse of it during the weigh-ins. But let's hear this story about the snake in the boat.
Go ahead, Tyson.
You want me?
I think you got a little bit more firsthand experience than I did, besides me smashing its head. But
so I got to back it up just about 3 minutes before the whole snake deal. We got on the right school of fish, and we were seeing magnum marks. I mean, when we say we're seeing big ones, we're seeing like 8+, and we were seeing the right fish. They were coming through bait. They were active. And the thing about it is, you know, when you get on them right schools, you got to make it happen really quick because they're in and they're out and then they're gone. I don't know if they go out to the abyss or tuck down or whatever, but like timing is everything. Well, we got in this right spot and we had 2 really big fish hooked up, actually 3. And it was crazy, the emotions that were going on. We had 2 pop off and then we had 1 come off with the leader knot out of the water. And frankly, it straightened a hook out. I don't know how. But anyway, I remember I took my bait off, clipped the line. I was back there tying up, about ready to lose my mind. And Dewey said, "Here's a giant." And I heard a zip. I heard the drag go and the hook set. And I looked up and the rod has been over. And when you get a real big one on, when they shake their head, the whole rod, you know, does a big head shake. And I see him with the head shake, and then the rod went limp. And he grabbed his head. He's like, "Oh my God, how did that happen?" You know, he came up and he just slack lined me. I don't know how that thing got off. And we were just about ready just to lose our minds. I mean, it took everything we could do to keep our heads straight. And in the middle of this whole mess, you know, we were both kind of like trying to gain our focus. We still got several hours to go here. Our marshal said in a frantic voice, "Hey, guys, I don't want to interrupt this whole fishing thing, but there's a snake in the boat." and I'm like, I like look, and all of a sudden I see his tail go like down the side gunnel and then like up underneath the console. And Dewey had a hooded sweatshirt sitting like right down beneath the steering wheel. And this damn snake crawled in behind made a nest in his hooded sweatshirt. And I'm like looking, I'm like, is this a bull snake? Is it a rattlesnake? Show that picture again. That's exactly what we saw the minute we.
So was it a bull snake or a rattlesnake?
Well, it was a bull snake, but it was a big one. but anyway, so that, you know, our marshal's like, "There's a snake right there," and he's back on the back end. Far away. Yeah, and Dewey's like, "What?" I'm like, "Oh God, there's a snake." Well, anyway, luckily Dewey had 2 nets. Okay, so we each grab a net, you know, and we're poking at this thing. Well, Dewey gets it pinned to the floor. Well, when he pins it, there's still like 3 foot of snake beyond where it's pinned, so it's like goes up underneath the consoles, going like underneath the steering wheel. And so we kind of inch our way up with the butts of the nets and, you know, kind of pin him against the side and pull him down. Well, finally we got him down, and Dewey grabs him by the pliers and flings him in the water quick. And I tell you what, it was like, what is going on here? These misses, a snake is in the boat. Like, we've got it's like Kurt said, we're getting ready to start a dumpster fire, you know.
The whole boat would have been on fire. The whole boat would have been on fire. I wouldn't even know if it was a rattler or a bull. Yeah, that'd have been it right there.
So, but anyway, what else do you have to add to that, Dewey?
Yeah, that was well, needless to say, that snake won't be getting into any other buddy's boat.
Thank goodness.
So, but the good news is I thought I mean, you know, like you just, the thing you got to put yourself in the perspective on is the mindset. So, you know, 100% that one of those fish was the tournament winning fish. Okay. You know, hands down, you know, it was, we had a good,
we've seen the one you had on. It was, you know, 7-8 feet underneath the boat, and it's hard to say, but it was an 8+ pounder. It was a 28+ inch fish. And the other ones, I know how big the marks were, but it's hard to confirm actually how big they were, but they're the right ones.
Yeah. But at that point in time, we had a 19.5 inch slot, a 19, and we had a 26. So, I mean, that one fish would have, you know, totally pushed us over the edge. And all I was thinking about is, man, this, at that point in time, it's hard to pull your mind out of the gutter, but it's like, you look at the clock, you're like, we can do this, we can do this. And Dewey saved the day. He did.
So
maybe 5 minutes later.
Yeah.
Do you feel like maybe in hindsight, like you lost those fish, you were, all not spinning out, but you were on that, like, what are we doing wrong? What's going on? The snake comes in the boat and you completely like forget about fishing for 30 seconds to a minute to figure out how the hell you're getting the snake out of the boat. And do you think that made it like reset you a little bit? Like, and then it was back to work, like maybe that was the reset out there.
I think it was God upstairs testing us to say, how bad you boys want this. That's right. Because
that was your old man and my old man sitting around going, let's try these boys today.
we have never had an easy one. Dewey and I have never, like, you hear about these guys, you go out and boom, boom. I've had a few easy ones in the past, but on the Governor's Cup, it's like every single thing that can happen or whatever. I mean, you're dealt with so many variables and tribulations, and it's truly remarkable how a person has to get through so much to actually make it all happen and get the right fish. But Dewey, tell them what happened right after we got the snake out of the boat.
Oh yeah, but like Kurt said, I think it honestly was a little bit of a reset, especially for me, because I was, Tyson lost a couple big ones and I had a chance. I lost that big one, and I was just like, we knew that any one of them fish were like potentially the winning fish, as long as we could catch a couple more slots. But we just knew that we wanted that one fish. That's what we were after, is just that one fish. We wanted it so bad. And we were getting, or I was at least just like not negative thoughts, but you're thinking like, what the heck? Like how do they come off? They don't come off in pre-fish. Like, what am I doing wrong? And then the next thing like snake in the boat, we get it out and we're like, what the heck just happened? We're kind of laughing, like talking with our Marshal Hank about it, just, kind of like, what the heck? And then it was almost like a reset. And then literally the next fish that we seen, we caught, and it was like a 26 3/4 incher. So yeah, it was just, man, it was a crazy half an hour. I'll say that.
Can I say something about that 26 3/4? So I was in at this point in time, I was in the back of the boat, and Dewey said, there's one. And he pulled up on it, got the boat positioned perfectly, like he always does. And made a perfect entrance in that fish. And I was sitting there watching it on my back shuttle, and I'm seeing the bait and I'm seeing the fish's reaction. And some of them you got to work pretty hard, but this one here was like, whoop, saw the bait and like started going up, and I'm just like, please God, please God, please God, please God. And I see the fish come up, and then I see him go like this, and I heard the zzz, and I heard the drag go, and I'm like, that one's got it. I mean, you could just tell how that fish just, I'll never forget, because I watched the whole thing, on my screen happen. But the way that fish come up and just drilled it, you knew right then and there that it was down the back of the hatch, and that one wasn't getting away. So pretty awesome.
Well,
I didn't give that one a chance to fight either.
Going back to that snake, just imagine if you didn't have a marshal in the boat and you go get in your seat to move,
no doubt.
Like, and that thing is curled up like.
Would have never, if we were concentrating so hard, we would have never seen it ever. Like you just got blinders on, and I think he just caught just the tail. It had to come in the back through the transom, because it wasn't in there at all throughout the day. And I'm guessing he just kind of slithered in there when we were looking the other way.
Yeah, Hank was like, I didn't want to tell you, but he goes, I've been watching this thing for like a minute. He goes, I thought my eyes were playing tricks with me. He said he just kept seeing his head pop up above the sweatshirt. And it's like, what the heck? Yeah, I would have freaked out if I would have reached down and grabbed my sweatshirt and grabbed the snake. Not cool.
I remember when he told me that, I saw the tail and then it disappeared, and I kind of peeked around the seat, and all of a sudden I seen the head come up, and
Nope.
Yeah.
So
I would have opened the gas tank, threw a match in, and dove out of the boat. That would have been the end of the day for Kurt.
Nope, gone.
yeah. So,
So you get through the whole snake debacle. You catch your other over. Obviously, you said you had a couple slots and one other over. You had to get the other. So you kind of answered my question I was going to ask earlier was, were you focused on your overs first and then your slots, or was it, how was your game plan going into it? Because I told everybody leading up to the tournament, out of every year, you're going to have to weigh 6 fish a day because the slots are weighing so well. So were you focused on those first, or were you just picking them off as they come?
Yeah, I would say that we were for sure focused on the overs. We got fortunate enough to catch a couple slots while we were looking for overs. But obviously, a 5 or 6 or 8 pound over goes a lot farther than, 6 slots or 4 slots or whatever. So if you want a chance to win, especially with this many boats and all these guys, you have to have 2 overs and 2 good overs each day to make a run at it. And now things are a little bit different than they used to be, just for the fact of how big these slot fish are. There's, we had a couple slots each day that were right at 3 pounds. I think we had one that was a 3-1. We had some 18 inchers that were, almost 210. So the slots definitely play now. But the one thing that's going to be a little bit different now is there's so many 18 and a half to 19 and 3/4 inch fish. All them fish next year are all going to be overs. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be another thing that you got to figure out next year on what you're going to keep. Unfortunately, like these tournaments, we don't go out there and we just catch the right fish in the right order. We've had winning fish in our hands before that we've thrown back. It's 100% about decision making. You got to be confident in what you're catching and what you can catch and what you throw back, because the difference between throwing a 1 pound 12-ounce slot back and catching a 2 pound 4-ounce slot can literally be the difference if you win or not.
And that's kind of the approach we took after we got that other over. We had three tags left, and our goal was to basically increase our weight by 2 pounds on slots by the time we were done at the end of the day. And fortunately, we were able to do that. But I remember, we went running and gunning, and we were looking for the perfect slots, the perfect marks. I mean, there's a lot of smaller slots, and there's some better slots mixed in isolated groups. And luckily Dewey I have a harder time targeting slots anymore because I'm always looking for big ones. It was funny going into this. I said to Dewey, I said, man, I'm really worried about the slots. He goes, I'm not worried about the slots at all. I'm worried about the overs. I was like, well, I'm not worried about the overs. I'm worried about the slots. Good teamwork, right?
Right.
So we went running and gunning to these certain areas. And I tell you what, Dewey's, I'll just tell you this, being able to see someone at a higher caliber of fishing level, it's like the efficiency switch flipped on. And one thing I'll mention is, the guys that can really do it well, they've got the same amount of time, and but the guys that really do it well will fish twice as many spots, and they'll make 3 times more casts, okay, in the same amount of time, efficiently fishing. And so we started running around looking at slots, and we'd pull in, and Dewey would find the right ones. And I remember we pulled into this one spot, and I had a little area found. I'm like, they're right here. He pulled in, and before I even had my rod out, he had one on. He pulled in, dropped out. There they are. Boom, caught one, netted it. I'm getting the thing untangled out of the net. He grabs another rod, flips it back in there, gets another one. So I got 2 flopping. And then I get the hook out of the one. He grabs that, flips it back out there again, has another one. It's just boom, 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 boom. He's putting the heat on them. And it was a pretty cool ending to that deal, because we were able to push out a couple of these slot fish. I know we made a 7-ounce upgrade on one and like a 5-ounce upgrade on another one, and then on that last tag, we pulled another 4-ounce upgrade there. So, I mean, that right there is truly what made that difference, because it was a pretty close call. That the weight was actually pretty close between Beekler and Walti at the end, and if it wasn't for those slots, it would have been really close. It would have been a matter of ounces. So
yeah, Casey, they were in early, and Casey was backstage, and we were trying to get we had a little printer issue going on, and we were working on that, and his lip was just quivering, and I'm like, "You got a good one?" And he's like, "Yes, it's okay, it's okay." Like he was just shaking, and I'm like, "Well, can you guys wait a little bit for me because I got to get this done." And I'd really like to have you wait a little longer because I don't need, like, I kind of want the suspense there. I kind of want some other teams to take you out of the lead because you guys weren't in, had no idea. But I mean, obviously he had a decent lead on after day one. And it was like, okay, he just needs a decent bag. And if he clips that 18 to 20 pound mark, he's probably going to take the thing down. And yeah, he was shaking, and even all the way through to weighing in, his lips were quivering, and he was shaking. He looked like Preston singing the national anthem. Actually, I think Preston's upper body was way better than Casey's.
Well, we were quivering and shaking too, by the way. So no, just the emotions associated with it. I mean, it's just, especially coming in like that. Dewey and I knew that, any time in the Governor's Cup, if you can do well and then match the weight or slightly do better, you got a really good chance, And, yeah, those guys fished. All those guys in the top, top tier fished extremely well in this deal, and fortunately, we were just able to get a couple of the more right bites. So.
Yeah, but you had it. You had it nailed. I mean, when we talked on Friday night, you talked about that lower 40s to Dewey was into the upper 40s. So you were right there. I think the conversation we had on Friday night was spot on. Mm-hmm. And I honestly, I felt very confident after day one, and I'm just a bystander. But I'm like, I think these guys have this thing. And that's how I felt after day one. And then I didn't even see you come in and weigh. I think I was out running the camera in the crowd, doing whatever. And I turned around and went, uh-oh, they're on stage. And then I ended up back in the Team Lodge studio. I'm like, oh, and I watched the whole thing unfold, the story about the snake and everything. I'm like, they got this thing. I mean, that's it. It's over. So pretty doggone exciting. And I had somebody ask me today, they said, so what's the big deal about this Governor's Cup? I said, well, the best way for me to explain it would be it is the Super Bowl of South Dakota walleye tournament fishing. Would you guys
100%
agree with that?
In the nation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm biased. I was going to say it's the Super Bowl of walleye fishing, but I'm biased when I say that, but it is. And I think, guys are on me about boundaries and stuff like that. And I think last year when we had Chris Haynes on, he summed it up best. It's one of the toughest tournaments to fish, and you're in a tight area with a lot of boats, and you have to outfish everybody around you. I mean, and that's what it is. If we open the thing up to you go to the 212 bridge, maybe it would change who's up top. Maybe it wouldn't, but it's not as meaningful as you're sucked in tight and you're out fishing guys that are fishing the same area as you.
Yep.
I think go ahead, Tyson.
But I think the boundaries are a good thing on the north end of this tournament. I guess everybody might have their own opinion on it, but I like tradition, and I'm not a guy that likes change that much, but it's a good deal for how it is, I think. So
yeah, it's not what this tournament's about. This it's not about the money. It's literally about the friendships that you make along the way and about the memories. It's literally, I mean, if you open the boundaries up and you let everybody run up north, yeah, the weights are going to be totally different, but it's right. not what this tournament's about.
Yeah, 100%. And after you hear enough, you start contemplating things, and then after Chris made that comment, and now you guys making the comment, that Bush's boundaries never coming off. I mean, yeah, does it get more congested with more boats? But I mean,
there's
just
still
go
a lot
out
of water out there. A lot of water.
Yeah, go out fish the next guy. I mean, that's the thing. And talking to guys, oh yeah, I'd pull up on a point and there'd be 6 boats there. Yep, that's fishing. And I said, and how many miles of river did you run past to get to that point with 6 boats on that had nobody there, and granted, we know there's unfishable waters and that, but there's plenty of stuff out there to fish.
And it's what, 55, 60 miles from the dam up to Bushes, on the water as you're making your web. So that, we're talking serious shoreline.
Yeah, you have the Cheyenne in there and all them other
right.
creeks and bays. There's a ton of water to fish.
Yeah. So you go on, you win this one. Dewey, you're heading to North Dakota tomorrow morning to take on the National Walleye Trail. Last time you were on Chicagoia, you made 100+ mile run to win it.
Think about that long of a run, but I don't think we'll be making that long of a run this time. And it's definitely a different fishery than it was the last time we were there. Not only with the forward-facing sonar, but just a completely different time of year. So it's going to fish a lot different, but definitely looking forward to getting up there and seeing how it goes. From what I've heard, the bite is a little bit off, but that being said, it's came up 10 feet this year. So them fish are going to be dispersed. They're going to be all over the place. I guarantee they're going to be in 2 foot of water, and there's going to be fish in 60 foot of water. So it's going to be a fun challenge, no doubt.
I know Dewey mentioned that, the high water and the bite being a little bit off. I heard that from so many people this year, the bite being slightly off, and even down here, I think it's still off. And do you think do you think a large portion of that, Dewey, is just due to all this water coming in and like the relatively low temperature and whatnot? I sure think it is.
I don't think they really know where they want to be yet. I think the water is fluctuating so much. There's so many different currents going on, just for the fact that we don't have a bunch of outflow coming out of the dam, that it's, the only current that we basically have is just from wind and, the moon phase and stuff like that. So the stuff it switches every single day. It doesn't set them fish up on points where it traditionally does. The water, finally, before I left to go to ICAST, I was out for a couple days and the water was, I think, 67 to 71. In a lot of places, I even found some 65-degree water. And then we had a couple of big wind days. And then when I got back, most of that water now is 71 to 74 for, from what I've seen. So that's definitely going to help set things up a little bit different. But I think it's just, there's so many factors that it's like the most unstable, besides the weather, as far as like big storms, it's the most unstable that I've ever fished at Lake Oahe.
Well, the week before the Cup, we had 100-mile-an-hour winds roll through the area, I was so happy it was I'm never happy for a storm like that, but oh my gosh, when that hit, I'm like, I am so glad this is the Saturday before the Gov Cup and not the Saturday of the Gov Cup, because I've been there.
Talk about a wrench in your throat. That would have really thrown I wouldn't have been able to sleep all night if it were me.
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
You just don't know what's going to happen with the displacement like that and that much, wind and water movement. And that next day, I went out after that big wind. I have never seen it in my life. When I drove past Core Bay on 1804, there was literally current, the couple finger points at the mouth of Core Bay that stick out. There's literally current coming off of that shoreline heading to the south. It literally looked like there was the turbines from the dam there pushing water. I've never seen anything like it in my life. How that worked. But it was just crazy how much water moved there. Did we lose Dewey?
Yeah, he must have got a phone call.
Oh, sure. He got a phone call. He'll pop back in. You talk about water temperature. Yesterday, we were fishing in 81 to 85 degree water, but the walleye that we were pulling out of 13 feet were not 80-degree fish. So, a lot of people talk about that water temp. That's surface temperature. And I'm sure out at the river, if I had my infrared gun with me and we went out fishing and we were in 72-degree water, I'll bet you $5 that a walleye coming out of 15 to 20 feet of water is not going to be 70 degrees.
100%. Yeah, definitely. The other thing I noticed about this year too, I've never seen it before in my life. Like I said about the fish staying a little bit more shallow, but I noticed that there was on the on the electronics, you'd see fry, you'd see smelt, you'd see herring, you'd see bug hatch. I mean, there was so much going on. And usually, you know, Kurt, you probably see it up at Spring Creek. Usually the mayflies are covering everything by the first part of July. And I think that deal is late too, but like there was so much going on, you know, you count in those 4 or 5 forage sources, you know, yeah, there you go. It's like that everywhere you go. But like you count in those 4 or 5, you know, forage sources plus, you know, cooler water plus rising water. It was just a completely different, you know, atmosphere this year than what we'd seen the last several, because usually by, you know, mid-July, I mean, right at Governor's Cup time, the Governor's Cup switch is usually when, you know, people are catching, boom, all of a sudden they disappear and they go to, you know, wherever they go. And yeah, it's just a lot different atmosphere this year.
Oahu's got food now. If they've never had it before, it's there now. Wow. It's amazing. Yeah.
It's, you know, like we had our little trash tournament and all the catfish we caught were plumb full of grasshoppers. You know, like I got in, I opened my live well and it was full of grasshoppers from all them fish, you know, just so there's, you know, so many bait sources. The fishery is healthy. We're going to continue to see these fish grow and grow. And it's just going to be, you know, despite the 2011 flood happening again, I think we're on a good trajectory for the lake. And yeah, it's going to be so much fun to see. And the southern end isn't, I wouldn't say the southern end's back, but it's definitely probably one of the better southern ends we've seen in 10 years, you know?
Yep.
So, go ahead.
I said the whole reservoir is looking pretty good. So,
yeah.
Oh, you mentioned reservoir. Let me ask you this real quick. Did you see the Belfouche reservoir? They're going to go to 2, I think 15-inch or over fish. So the limit will go from 4 to 2. And I think I saw that in Target Walleye today. I thought that was kind of interesting. 2 over 15, I believe, is how it reads. Don't quote me on it, but they are going from 4 to 2.
Well, you know, we've had these talks. I think me and Tyson have had these talks, and you know, we got to start looking at these fisheries differently, because Bitter Lake isn't Lake Oahe, Lake Sharp isn't Lake Oahe. So when we're managing fisheries, we need to. I'm glad they're doing that, to say they're, you know, looking at fisheries differently per body of water. And I know it's hard to, you know, for the general public to understand. You can go to this lake and catch 3, or this lake you can catch 5, but I definitely think it's the right trend to give these fisheries. I mean, you can't treat them all the same. They're not the same.
Not at all.
Right.
So, I mean, Dewey, you like traveling around the country with what you do, fishing the National Walleye Trail. Like when you know, like I asked you earlier, what's your game plan going into practice? But when you're going to a different body of water, what's your game plan going into a Green Bay or to, you know, a Lake Erie, or, you know, maybe somewhere Red Wing where you've never been before? What are you doing there?
Honestly, it all starts even before you leave the house. It starts with looking at your map, figuring out what time of year you're going to be there. And then now with, you know, the technology that's out there, I shouldn't say technology, but YouTube and stuff like that, you have access to so much information that you can just basically figure out, you know, certain areas to get started in. Whether it's going to be the tournament winning spot, probably not. But you figure out different bait presentations, colors, etc., that you know, you can at least get a couple bites on and go from there. So that's generally how I do it. And then I just, you know, stare at my graphs, figure out what area of the lake I want to be in. And traditionally, like fishing reservoirs, it's pretty, I wouldn't say easy, but it's like there's a trend. Like they spawn up in the north and they work their way south, and generally the bite follows that. So on a reservoir, that's kind of what I go off of. Green Bay, all these other places, they all fish so much different. The fish migrations are different in each one of them. And then, you know, one of the other biggest things too is honestly figuring out what bait is in the system that, you know, Green Bay, like that we were just at. The alewives is one of the biggest bait forages that they have there. So, when we were going there, just trying to honestly get away from the bait just because there was so much bait. And then walleyes literally would not eat if you were anywhere close to bait. On Lake Oahe right now, it's just a little bit different because there's literally bait every single place you go nonstop. It doesn't matter where you're at. If you're in 100 foot of water, if you're in 2 foot of water, there's some sort of bait always on your screen. So I've never been to a system or on a body of water that has as much bait as what I've seen on Lake Oahe the last few days. But it's super cool to see because it's just, it doesn't matter what species of fish that you're catching, they're all super healthy. And I just believe that this lake is just going to gain more popularity over the years with all the big numbers of fish and just the giant fish that there actually is out here.
So I got a question on the bait without going into too much detail. Like if a guy, Joe Blow, is going out fishing this weekend, like, are you looking for certain kinds of bait when you're fishing these fish? Or how do you break? I mean, I don't want, like I said, don't divulge any real deep secrets, but when you get out there and you find bait, you hear guys are frustrated. All I see is bait. All I see is bait. And more of the side scan, down scan 2D guys, because we're watching the fish through with the forward facing, come through that bait. But what would you say, like, certain tactics maybe work better, or is it like, what would you give somebody a tip on to go after that?
I don't even know if this is really, it's not even a secret. But like the big fish on Lake Oahe, they want to eat lake herring. They'll definitely, when they're in shallower and stuff, they'll definitely smelt. That's one of their primary forages as well. But they don't care about bugs. They want to eat a ribeye, and them things are out roaming around eating lake herring. So typically the big fish and the small fish are not in the same spot.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people don't understand that they are just not together.
No,
typically.
Generally speaking, in years past, from what I can see, I'm sure Tyson would agree with this, but generally, if you're in them schools of fish and you're catching 18 to 19s, typically you're going to have some 23s, 25s mixed in with them. You can randomly catch a big one in there with them as well. But what I've seen this year is like, it is a strict cutoff. It's like that 1 year class of 18 and a half to 19 and 3/4 inch fish, and there is nothing else with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the big ones are definitely, they do different things. They've got different habits. It's like, what do you feed a baby? Baby food.
Right.
What's a grown man eat? A 1 pound ribeye.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
well, I did an episode for my In Through the Outdoors, and I was trying to explain to people, because I had a conversation with a couple of guys about, they were always catching little walleye. I said, well, you got to think about how walleye live. Their home is deep water. So those big fish are always in deep water, and they're the last fish after a front to come up into the shallows. So if you're messing around catching these small fish, they're like the infants. They're children at play. Then you get into your 17, 18, 19s, those nicer slot fish, and they're like teenagers or 20-year-olds. Then you get into your overs, those 20-plussers, and they're mature, and their movements are calculated. So if you start thinking about fish as children to adults, you might understand where you're at, and the fact that you're catching 12 inches all day long. You need to move deeper or find a different spot with different fish, because those small fish are there.
I wouldn't
people get that
deeper by any means. I think it's just, a lot of times it's this forage base. If you're back in a creek and a lot of those fish are eating grasshoppers like your catfish were, that's one food source, and then figuring out where your good fish are at, and then relating that to what you see on the graph. Are you seeing a haze? Are you seeing a cloud of vertical stack bait that would be maybe smelt, or are you seeing the bait that actually looks like individual fish swimming around. You know, I mean, there's a variety of things that a guy can target there. But like, you know, Dewey said, there's definite differences in the habits, and there are some points in time where you find areas where they're somewhat mixed together, but a lot of times they're doing different things, you know.
You know, and it's interesting. We talk about all the bait. This was my last trip on Oahe here a couple of weeks ago, and you look at all of the different fish that are involved here. You know, like you were talking. You know, you've got your fry. There's just about everything represented in this screenshot. I saw that. I'm like, oh, I got to get a picture of that quick.
Pull that back up again. So, like on your side scan view up above.
Yep.
Look at those hard returns on the top. Top under your boat track, and then the big cloud of bait on the bottom of it. It's crazy looking at those predators just getting ready to make hay on that thing. You know.
It is. Well, look at if you look down at the down scan or the down imaging, look at the big fish off to the right. Or to, you know, there you go. There's a predator that is getting ready to go through that bait with its mouth open.
Mm-hmm.
It's just truly amazing. It's a ton of fun. Well, I see we're at an hour. I don't know if that's enough or we could talk for another hour and a half, I'm sure.
Well, Dewey's got enchiladas in the oven ready for the week. Maybe he's got his bag packed. Hopefully the wife.
Valerie's actually the one that's making the enchiladas. I just bought the supplies.
Oh, good for you.
We'll give credit where credit's due.
Yeah.
I'll be 15 minutes.
I know there's the one thing I want to mention. Half of tour level gold was represented at the South Dakota Governor's Cup, the 50th Gov Cup. I didn't see any camera crews, didn't see anybody there, so I don't expect that Dewey and Tyson are going to have a segment in the next tour level gold. But I guarantee somehow, some way, there will be a rubber snake in the next episode of tour level gold. I just
Well, if there ain't, I'll be very disappointed.
Next spring.
Yeah, I don't even want to think about snakes.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, I don't either, because they're just not that cute. It's not like you want to reach out and touch them or pet them or anything. They're spooky. Fellas, congratulations. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. You're both wonderful guys. Great to talk to you. Great to have been able to get to know you and watch you succeed. This is great. Thank you.
One more thing before we get off. I was just going to mention this, the support staff that we've got, you know, we're, my sponsors are my family, you know, and, you know, thankfully, you know, both of us have very supportive wives, Dewey and I both, that encourage us to go and do it. And you know, that's incredible feeling to have. You can't do it without having your mind in the right spot. And I just want to thank our wives. You know, Dewey's wife, best meals I've had in the last year were when we got done fishing. So hats off to Val. That's my mouth is watering. I can't hardly take it.
This probably won't help then.
It didn't look like that.
So,
all right.
Well, thank you guys. Good luck in the next one, Dewey. Tyson, I'm sure we will be running into each other. Me and Preston. I promised him a trip in the team lodge last fall. You know, we just didn't get the good ice to go, so we'll definitely have to get him out. And you know, and Dewey, you can come along too, because you can bring some of those prototype baits that we can try, and we can hang out in the weekend on the ice shack.
That'd be perfect.
Fantastic. All right. Good luck and thanks, you.
Guys.
Take care. Have a great night.
See ya.
Oh, yeah.